Hi guys, welcome back to Awaken. I'm Emma. In today's video, I'll be sharing how I decluttered 16 years of stuff from my home's attic space and garage by asking 4 questions. If you'd like to declutter any of these often overwhelming spaces or just areas around your home, you'll find this video helpful. Although you don't have to look at the stuff you put in these spaces every day, you know it's there, taking up space not just physically in your home, but in your head, a mental inventory of stuff you need to care for and maintain. Out of sight, yes, but not out of mind. I knew it was sat there waiting to be sorted one day, but I hadn't seen this stuff in like 2.5 years, some of it much longer, until one day my ex-husband, who had decided to have a bit of a clear out of the previous family home, in particular the attic space and garage, began to drop it off at my home over the space of a couple of weeks. It was now in full sight in my hallway, living room and kitchen. I had no attic or garage space in my new home. Just a small garden shed that I've managed to store a few items in. As someone who had found minimalism, owning only what added value and meaning to my life, and those of my daughters, and removing the rest, I found this massive stuff that I clearly didn't need, having lived without it for so long, very overwhelming. I felt stressed, anxious, and generally low every time I opened the front door, walked into my home and had to look at it. First thought, right, I'm going to load my car and take everything to the tip. But then I opened up a few boxes and bags and began to find things like my girl's christening dress, photographs, items that were too good to be binned and that someone else could get years of joy and use out of. So the tip wasn't the solution. Now I have 2 girls, 2 dogs, a home to look after, as well as a full-time job. So I'm thinking, when am I going to find time to work through all of this stuff? I'm just going to have to do what I can when I can. And this ended up being me sorting through a few bags and boxes for anywhere between 15 minutes up to a couple of hours, most nights for a couple of weeks. I had no space or time to try to organise it any better, into like categories first. So I just began to hold up each item individually and ask the first question. Can this item be used again? So first I'm looking for the easy decision items, the ones which probably could have been binned a long time ago. I have no idea looking back why I chose to store some of these items. I looked for any clothes which were torn, stained, any underwear or pyjamas, as these couldn't be used again. There were some old cosmetics and toiletries that had gone hard or mouldy, and some old toys which were broken or had pieces missing. These went into the tip pile of stuff that I couldn't use and nobody else could or would want to, given its condition. Now I decided many years ago to keep and store things like the girls' birthday cards from birth up until age 5, like every one. Banners and even deflated balloons from special occasions, and a whole tub filled with plastic keys gifted to me and my husband on our 18th and 21st birthdays. Any items which I felt any sentiment towards, like the odd birthday card I put to one side to deal with later on. But the deflated balloons and keys that I held no sentiment for and couldn't be used by me or anyone else, they too went into the tip pile. At my local tip or recycling centre, as it's now called, you have to independently dispose of your items by material. So card goes into one bin, plastic another, metal another, and there's also a textile bin for clothing. So I bear this in mind as I was bagging everything up. 12 bin bags, all sorted by material, went to the tip. Right away I'd reduced this stuff by around 1/3, so the entire task just felt far less overwhelming. I felt like I'd made huge progress in just a couple of hours, and this gave me the incentive to carry on. Always start with the easy decisions first for these reasons. Now that I'd gotten rid of anything that couldn't be used, the next question I asked when looking at each remaining item was, will I use it again? I could say, yeah, sure, I'll use it again someday when looking at most items, but this is how most of them ended up in my attic space and garage, unused and for so long. Things like spare power cables for different appliances. I hadn't used these because I'd quite simply forgotten about them, and when I'd needed a replacement power cable, I'd just gone out and spent a few pounds buying new ones. I decided I needed to put a parameter around the question, will I use it again? Like a guideline. So instead I asked the question, will I use this item again in the next 12 months? I say 12 months because you can then allow for seasonal factors or occasions that only come around once a year. Given that I'd managed without these items for at least the last 2.5 years, some much longer, I could safely say no to most things. Any of those items I'd needed since moving into my new home, for example clothing or homewares, I'd bought. I had missed a couple of these things, and I remember thinking over the last couple of years a few times, oh, it'd be really nice if I still had this or still had that. For example, this big photo frame, I just liked having all of my photos in one place instead of frames scattered everywhere, easier cleaning. Buying a new one of these hadn't been a priority, and so yeah, it was nice to have it back. Will I get around to filling it with nice photographs and hanging it within the next 12 months? Yes. Also this plant hanger that I bought on a trip to New Orleans, which had been made by a local woodworker on the bayou. I couldn't replace this without heading back there, which I'd love to do one day. Apart from cut the grass, I've done nothing to my garden in my new home. Again, buying things like plants and hangers and pots just hasn't been a priority for me. So I thought, yeah, eventually this can be used to add a bit of colour to the garden. You just need to add some cheap pots and plants. Is it realistic that I'll be able to do this within the next 12 months? Yes. So I put these things and a couple of others that I or my girls will use within the next 12 months into a yes tub. I came across a ton of unused greetings cards for Christmas, birthdays and other special occasions. Although I personally could use them again, I thought, but Emma, you won't, because in my new house I have nowhere to store them for a start. But let's say I bought out a bit of my attic space to store them. What are the chances of me trekking up there, scrambling about in the dark for, say, a birthday card that would cost me 50p and that I could pick up whilst doing my weekly grocery shop? There's no chance. I'm not going to do it. I didn't do it in my last house and I'm not going to do it now. Those cards would have sat up in the attic space for another 5 or 10 years as they had done in my last one. So I thought, no, I won't use them within the next 12 months. They can go on the no pile and someone else will be able to use them. Maybe someone who's willing to and can actually store them somewhere close to hand to use on special occasions. Putting things close to hand, that's exactly what I then went and did with the few items I decided to keep. I left the frame near my printer as a reminder to print photographs for it. I measured my plant hanger to see what pot sizes I'd need for it and left it in the shed. We're on a top shelf, so it sat staring at me every time I went inside. I also had lots of paperwork and documents spread across several boxes and bags too, so I just picked all of this out and put it in its own tub, again for sorting later. Okay, so I won't use these things, but do they bring me joy? Do they make me happy just by looking at them? This gong I bought on a trip to Vietnam. I love how it looks and I love the sound you can make with it. It makes me smile and is something that will bring me joy in my new home. And for all these reasons, I decided I was going to hang on to it. Or are these items sentimental to me? At this stage, I wasn't deciding if I was going to hold on to all of these sentimental things. This requires a lot of time and consideration. I was just asking the question and on my initial reaction, separating them out because I had such a big volume of stuff to get through. So for example, this baby cardigan, it could be used again. I won't use it again, but does it bring me joy or sentiment? Yes, it's what Lydia wore when she left the hospital after being born. When I set eyes on it, after so long, it made me feel quite emotional, happy. It brought back happy memories. Anything like this I added to another tub. On the flip side, this baby grow, it can be used again. I won't use it within the next 12 months. And although I think it's lovely, it doesn't bring back any specific special memories or make me feel particularly emotional. I'm not sure why I was hanging on to it and I'd chosen to store it. So it stayed in the no pile. I then went ahead and displayed my lovely gong, not tuck it away inside the drawer. It took me a couple of minutes to knock a nail in the wall for it, although I'd quite like a wooden frame for it eventually. But I'm enjoying this every day now. I still have a couple of boxes of sentimental items to, as I said, work through at a later, but not too much later date. So these items could all be used, although I'd never use them within the next 12 months, or likely ever again, and they weren't sentimental to me. But could anyone else use or want them? I thought about my family and friends first. I had bags of clothes that belonged to Lydia in a variety of different sizes. I'd kept them because they were quite unique, good quality, and in good condition. And I did hope that one day Bella would like to wear them. She had worn some of Lydia's clothes when she was younger, but now at age 10, she's quite fussy when it comes to a wardrobe. And her style at age 10 is very different to what Lydia's style was at age 10, so she was having none of it. I set aside some clothes in smaller sizes for my niece, who is 1. I came across some books which had belonged to my girls, which they'd outgrown, and set these aside for my nephew, who was 4, because they're just perfect for his age, or soon will be, and he loves books. I found some seasonal decorative pieces that weren't cheap or with decent quality, but given I have enough and didn't want to store any more, I put these to one side for my brother and sister for them to enjoy with my niece and nephews. Rather than just turn up at the houses with this stuff, I sent photographs on my phone of the things I thought they might like and asked them if that was the case. I could have invited them over to have a look, or just turns up at the houses, but personally I think this can then make them feel obliged to take things from you, and your clutter then just becomes theirs. When offering things, it's well thought out. I think about whether they'll actually use it, how much money it will save them, things like that, and then the first thing I say to them is, I've been having a little bit of a declutter at home, I've come across this item, this is how I think you'll use it. Don't worry if I'm wrong and you don't want to have it, you won't use it, you don't like it, that's absolutely fine. The last thing I or we should want to do is burden anyone else with our stuff so that they have to care for it, maintain it, and one day spend hours decluttering it. If my family and friends wanted the items I'd set aside for them, I politely asked them to collect them as soon as possible or drop them off myself at their houses within a couple of days. If they didn't want them, that was absolutely fine. I had a couple of options for getting rid of them. I could donate them to charity. I have plenty of charity shops in my area, or try to sell them to make some money from them for things I do need, or to save for things I may need one day. A substantial amount was taken along to car boot sales. I've done many of these over the years, and I know that they're not the best place to take items to that you plan on getting maximum payout for, but they can save you a lot of time. Many prospective buyers can view, ask questions, pay for, and then take away many purchases in the space of one morning. You're done. I've made between £80 and £300 from each of the car boot sales that I've done. From this particular mass declutter, I had enough stuff to get me through 5 car boot sales. I just had to store everything in the shed and then pull out some bits each week. After my last car boot sale, anything that I haven't managed to sell was dropped off at a couple of local charity shops. It is important that you do get as much of the stuff that you've decided you absolutely do not want to keep or can't sell out of your house as soon as possible. So you or your kids or anyone else you live with isn't tempted to have a look through it and decide that you do want to keep things, or that you can maybe find a use for them one day. Also, so that you don't have to add it to your mental to-do list or forget about it entirely. I think if you haven't totally decided on an item, and I mean you're really torn, It can be a good idea to test it out. Maybe you're really unsure about a decorative piece. Leave it, or if it's being stored, put it out, just one at a time so you don't forget about it, and give it a few days or a week of looking at it to decide if it's something you really enjoy. If not, then you can more easily let it go and will less likely feel any regret later. If you're looking for maximum payout on your items, maybe you paid a lot of money for them, or they're in really good condition or unused. Maybe it's a limited edition piece or a collectible. Car boot sales are not the place to sell these items. You can try selling on Vinted, which is an online marketplace where you can sell your unwanted items, mainly clothing and footwear, with no fees, or an auction site like eBay, where buyers from all over the world, who perhaps are collectors of the items you're selling and appreciate the true value, can bid on them. You will have to pay seller's fees on eBay though, so bear this in mind. It will take slightly longer for you to sell these items online, as you'll need to take photographs, type out descriptions and weights and dimensions, and even then you're likely to get a wave of emails asking for more information. Even if you've provided as much information as possible on an item, packaged it well and sent it on time, the buyer could receive it and simply change their mind or decide it doesn't fit them well or the space well and want to send it back and ask for a full refund. I didn't have time for this, having so much stuff to work through, so I decided I wasn't going to try to sell anything online that was unlikely to achieve £50 or more. That was just a little rule I made up for myself, but we all value our time differently, so feel free to make up your own rule. But I listed them right away, like picked up my phone, took pictures whilst I had them out, and I left the boxes out in my kitchen ready for someone to collect. This was important because if I'd say put them to the back of the shed and said to myself I'll get round to listing these sometime, they likely would have sat there for quite a while, and instead they were listed, sold and out of my house within 10 days. As a minimalist and someone whose physical environment impacts heavily on their emotional well-being, I found it very difficult having to look at this stuff whilst working through it, deciding on it and eventually discarding it. If you can actually work through this stuff in your attic or garage space, then you won't have this problem. But I remember thinking, I've accumulated this stuff over 16 years by working hard for it, by spending time away from my family and friends. I've sat in regret over all of the wasted time and money I've spent on stuff, but trust me, it's no reason to hang on to it. This just leads to even more wasted time in caring for it, maintaining it, moving it about, to clean on, under or around it. And you're reminded of your wasted money and time every time you look at this stuff. Stuff costs more than money and time. In my case, and in the case of many others, it costs your emotional well-being. But I didn't want to react too quickly to this stuff by just sending it all off to the tip. I thought I should at least try to recoup some of the money that I've worked so hard for to pay for it. I never thought I'd see any of this stuff again, so the few hours of hard work I put into sorting it was all worth it. I ended up with a bonus of a few £100, which was put towards the cost of a trip to London with my girls. As hard as it was getting up at 5 AM in the morning to do car boot sales, I did come away from those with more than just money, with a sense of satisfaction knowing that others were going to go on to use those items and get use out of them. It's surprising how one question from someone about a particular item can spark up a whole conversation about its history, its uses, and what they could or plan to do with it themselves. This really can help you feel less guilty about how much you paid for it and that you never really used it much. Whether it's 16 years of clutter sat up in your attic space, garage or shed, or just items from around your home that you're no longer using and are just collecting dust, taking time to gather them all together, work through them room by room or category, whatever works for you, and taking time to answer these 4 questions is such a great investment of your time. You no longer have to dust or maintain these items, saving you valuable time. That mental inventory becomes much smaller, freeing up space for, quite frankly, more important things. Someone else gets joy or use out of them and you can make some money. But what I've found so valuable about This and past decluttering sessions is the new mindset I've developed as a result. Anytime I'm out shopping and I look at something and think, oh, that's nice, I'm also thinking, am I going to use it within the next 12 months? Or is it going to sit on a pile? And am I going to be thinking about who to give it to or how much to sell it for? How many hours would I have to work to pay for it? Is it worth me time? And how much time am I going to have to invest to care for it and maintain it? Where am I going to store it? The list goes on. But you won't believe how much money, time and clutter you save around your home by asking yourself these questions. With so much of this clutter gone, yes, that's right, my home and shed are free of it. I'm left with just these sentimental items as well as some others I already have. But how much is too much? Can you have too much? How do you decide, and where do you store it? And what about paperwork? How do we decide what to keep, how long to keep it for, and how do we store it? We'll have a good look through all of these items and paperwork and dive into answering some of these difficult questions in some other videos coming very soon. So be sure to hit that bell and subscribe button if you'd like some help sorting through and decluttering those items from your home and don't want to miss those videos. I hope you found this video helpful and can use it to help declutter your spaces and reap the many benefits of living in a clutter-free home. Please share your experience if you do, or if you have any questions for me to help you along the way, drop them in the comments. If you liked this video, let me know by hitting the thumbs up. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.